Welcome, beautiful people. Welcome to the I don't even know what episode this is from Bloke to Woke. There's been so many. But yeah, super excited about tonight's episode. We have Nikii Syme, who is a love and relationships coach, and she helps women to heal their past with the masculine and allowing them to attract the men that they want to attract in their lives. And super excited to have her on and speak to this. And really, the intention of having women on is to really see both sides of the coin. With From Bloke to Woke, it's always been about the men speaking on their upbringings and the things that they had to go through. But now, really allowing women to share what it is and how they went through their journey growing up with men who carried a lot of trauma and things around abuse and all the different unconditional patterns that can happen with all of us. And hey Solly, how's it going? Hey Amanda, Todd, hello. Guys, say hello when you jump on, please. I'm just waiting for Nicola to join. Here she is, beautiful. And this is the second take. We had a bit of technical difficulties on the last video, but we're on and ready to go with this one, so let's do it. Hey Amanda, once November. Hey Trip, how are you, brother? Valerie is always on. Thank you so much for all the support. I really appreciate it. And for people, while we're waiting for Nicola, you please just drop in the comments what you are most grateful for about today. I think you have actually seen every single one, Valerie. You'd be a great person to ask to help me with organizing and getting all the key points for all the videos so it makes it easy for people to watch. Solomon, how you doing? Nikki, Gia, how's it going? So just adding Nicola at the moment. She should be coming on. Just Facebook's being Facebook. Yes, I've added you in, Nicola. So there we go. Awesome. It says adding, but you're not being added. Hey Megan, how are you? Thanks for making me cry
Hi.
last night. Hey
Who made you
Nicola, how are you?
cry? Who made you cry last night? I just came on at
We
that. I was like, oh.
No, it was beautiful. They had an interview with Megan Broadbeck last night, and
Yeah.
yeah, she just shot a heap of love that towards me, and I was like, oh, it was nice to
She's
rewatch that.
divine. I love that woman.
Rewatch that if you want to see me cry, everyone, on live video.
Awesome.
It's great.
I'm so
But
sorry
how?
about that. I'm just like technology, man. Like, and kids, they just don't mix.
Yeah, that's all good. We're
Yeah.
here now. We're
We're
on.
here
Everyone
now.
else is
Yeah.
tuned in. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
That's good. I'm good. I'm a little bit in the sleepy weather in Cairns at the moment. It hasn't stopped raining for a couple of days.
Mm, I saw a picture of the
Ah.
yeah, it's perfect up there. I saw a picture of the Barren Falls and they were like in full glory, like it just is stunning. So beautiful.
Mm, yeah, it's intense, but good.
Mm.
Also good. And
Yeah,
yeah, super
definitely.
excited to chat with you and vibe about all things
Yeah.
that you love. And I connected with Nicola. I don't even know, it was a couple of months ago now, I think. And I've
Yeah,
been
this has been a long
watching.
time coming.
Mhm. And yeah, I've been watching her stuff for a little while, and she really shares a lot of value for the women out there, but not only for the women just for the allowing the men to really the women to drop into their feminine and allowing the men to really step up and having teaching the power between all the men and the women and also yeah,
Mm,
just relating better. And that's the main thing that I want to bring up into this video is how we can relate in a way
yeah,
that's just healthy for all of us. And I I feel this is really important to have, both perspectives of the coin from men and women, like I shared before. It's not all about having, the blokes on this show sharing their experiences, but also the women's experiences with growing up around men with trauma and unconscious conditioning and all that kind of stuff that can kind of happen with a lot of us.
yeah.
And uh, would really love to like drop it right back to where it all kind of started for you, like before you got into doing what you do now and your journey, with relating with men, growing up and how you got into doing what you do now, and yeah, just the whole kind of journey, like a Sheila to healer journey.
Yeah, I
So
love that. I absolutely love that. That bloke to work and Sheila to healer. It was just like, that's brilliant. So good. Um, yeah, like it's been a journey for sure. My father was manic depressive, and we didn't know about it when we were growing up. So I grew up with a dad who was like extreme highs and all over me and like cuddling me and just like all like love, love, love. And then these extreme lows where he would just retreat completely and sit on the couch and just stare at the TV and wouldn't even acknowledge us for days on end, weeks on end. So it was a really challenging, like, to grow up in that kind of situation. And he didn't actually know that that was what was going on either. So he hadn't been diagnosed. He didn't get diagnosed until I think I was like 17. And so we just saw this man who was just like these crazy extremes, and 1 minute felt so loved, and then the next felt really like unwanted and unloved. And of course, as a child, that builds this belief within you that men are like this, like up and down, and I never felt accepted and I never felt good enough, and I never had that really beautiful loving relationship with my dad. And so that kind of obviously followed through, like affected my self-worth and my beliefs around men and how I perceived relationships to be, and what I perceived as a loving relationship. And yeah, it caused definitely a fair bit of unsettled unsettled experiences when it came to men for me. So all through my childhood I had that, and then into my teens I had I was just terrified of men. I was so broken inside that I just didn't know how to communicate with men. I didn't know how to be around them, and I was so insecure and just had zero confidence, and often found myself pleasing. So I remember one of my earliest memories was at primary school and playing catch and kiss, but I was the only one that was chasing this guy, and I didn't realize what was going on, and that they were actually just being quite mean, as kids can be, and taking the piss out of me, and I just remember that so clearly. And that followed in through my entire like relating life as well, where it was kind of like that whole, I felt like I was constantly chasing and trying to attract, like hold on to men, and finding myself molding to appeal in a more like way for them, that they would find, like showing up in a way that would be more appealing for them, and not being myself, being really terrified to show my true colors and who I was on the inside for fear of being rejected, because that happened so often in my childhood. I would come home and I'd be like, Dad, 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 and he would just shut me down. So it taught me to not express myself in any kind of way, any kind of healthy way, to not really believe that I was good enough or, loved. And that carried through, as I said. So yeah, I got into then I got actually my first relationship I ever had. I was 16, I think, and he was 21. And so I always kind of went for older guys as well. And then he cheated on me, which anchored in my beliefs of not being good enough and everything even more. And then, yeah, it just continued this cycle until I eventually got to the point where I woke up and was like, enough is enough. I fell into a really toxic relationship. And something I really discovered is that the more my awareness came to, the more I felt like I was kind of outside of myself, watching everything I was doing. So I was in this relationship with a really beautiful guy, and I sabotaged that by cheating on him. And then as punishment for myself for doing that, I fell into a relationship with a really toxic relationship with a guy. It was all about drugs and alcohol, and he just fucked me. And it was just really nasty, and it completely, I changed who I was. So I was a really fit and healthy and active person, and was having amazing, you know, was running half Ironmans and just a completely like health freak. And then I fell into this relationship where I became a drinker. I was smoking pot every day. I was doing hard drugs every weekend, like just not who I was. And it was funny because I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew I was punishing myself for what I'd done to the guy before. And I still couldn't really pull myself out of it. And a beautiful friend was the one that literally like gave me the kick up the bum that I needed and said, Nick, what are you doing? This isn't you. This isn't who you are. And you need to stop doing that. And flew me to New Zealand for a couple of weeks, where I finally got away with it. And that kind of started my journey back to self. I went on about a 7-month journey just to come home to myself and actually find who I was and reconnect with me and build that confidence and that love within, so that I could feel fucking whole for the first time in my life, because I'd never had that before. And as a result, I'd always gotten into relationships with guys where I'd just bend over backwards. I would do whatever they wanted. I would speak. I would just allow them to control in such a way. And then I had this cycle where, you know, we would be together for about 17 months, and then something would kick in after that honeymoon period would kind of phase. And this is related to Dad. So it was all like love, 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 love. And then the honeymoon period would kind of cut off. And I'd be like, oh, fuck, he doesn't love me anymore. Oh, fuck, what the fuck is happening? Like, rather than allowing it to just settle into its natural groove. And then I would set about sabotaging. I'd become psycho and crazy and jealous, and be checking his phone and just doing whatever I could to sabotage that relationship, to get out of it, to keep myself safe. So I was essentially breaking it and ending it before the guy had the chance to leave me, because I just believed that he would leave anyway. So that's essentially my journey in a nutshell, of getting to the point where I was just like, this is my line in the sand. Something has to change. I refuse to keep doing this. And yeah, I went on that journey to really connecting back to me for the first time in my life, and building that beautiful, loving relationship with myself.
Mm. And what were some of the things that you had to go through in that process?
The biggest thing was just being really fucking honest with myself for the first time in my life. I had been lying to myself. So I had no trust in other people, because I had been lying to myself for so many years. So that was a massive thing, really starting to learn to trust myself. I removed all men from my life completely, because I'd always had guys like in the background that I could message. Like the guy that flew me to New Zealand was one of them that I had to cut off, and I was secretly in love with one of my best friends. And so I had to remove all of the men from my life, all of my safety nets and my fallback plans, to actually finally be 100% alone for the first time in my life. That was terrifying. I was so terrified, because I so deeply, deeply wanted to be loved, but I was so focused on seeking that outside of myself without realizing I could create that inside. So when I removed all of those possibilities of a man loving me, I was just like, holy shit. And that was actually probably the biggest thing for me to go through. The most confronting thing was to actually be completely alone and not be seeking. Because even when I was like not more single, I was still looking. I was still on Tinder. I was still dabbling. I was still communicating with guys. So doing that was massive. And then I dove in deep to like reading every kind of book I could on self-love and positive psychology, meditating regularly, filling my cup up, reconnecting with who I was and what was actually really important to me. What were my values? I remember a psychologist asking me one time, he's like, what are your values? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, what is a value? And he's like, what's important to you? And I'd never thought about it. You know, I'd never even gone close to thinking about it. So it was really about building that relationship, doing the things that really made me happy and brought me joy, facing off with myself in the mirror, looking at the mirror, standing there butt naked and facing off with the shit that I keep telling myself about my body and what I was worthy of. I had a really unhealthy relationship with my body because I had this idea that all men wanted skinny chicks. And I'm like, it's interesting actually, because I recently got down to the size that I also always dreamed of being, which was like 56 kilo or something. It was always my goal. I'm like, if I get to 56 kilo, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to feel lovable and it's all going to be amazing. And I recently got down to that after having my second child, and I felt the most unsexy and unfeminine that I ever had in my life at that size. It was like, I am now back at, I think, about 60, and I feel great again. I feel feminine and more like myself. So it was really interesting to experience that too. But yeah, I really had to start building that relationship back with myself and really ensuring that I was filling me up. And when I finally got to the point where I didn't feel like I needed a man, like I was really, really happy just being single, doing my thing. And I wasn't even seeking, because I think so often we go out and actually we'll be out with friends and we'll be going socializing. We're constantly like looking around. Oh, are there any guys here? Or is there anyone here that I could possibly be with who might be attracted to me? Or, you know, and I finally got to that point where that wasn't happening. It was so liberating to just be like, you know what? I'm going out to have fun with my girlfriends. I don't care about being with anyone because I've got me. Someone comes along, awesome, that's an added bonus. But for so long it had been, well, I need you to make me feel whole. And I feel like a lot of people are still in that space, especially a lot of women that I work with are like still in that space of, I need a man, and haven't created that beautiful relationship with self yet to be able to attract him from that space. Because from that space, that's when you attract in that other whole being, you know, who's going to complement your life, not that desperate, needy partnership that's really unhealthy and often doesn't last. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry,
Yeah.
there's a comment saying there's a bit of noise in the background. I'm just going to close my window. There's some hectic frogs in the rainforest going off out there.
Oh, is that what it is? Wow, they are so loud. They are so loud, man.
Yeah. I have to
Crazy.
sleep next to them.
Holy shit.
Is that better?
I was wondering what it was, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's just me because no one was saying it. But yeah, interesting. Frogs.
I didn't realize with the earphones on.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And so what are some of the other, I guess, questions that you were asking yourself to really, you know, heal that part of yourself to be able to attract a man that you actually wanted to?
So one of the ones that really stood out for me was very much, you know, who am I when I'm just being? Like, who am I at my core, that level of just beingness, not when I'm labeling myself as a mum or a sister or well, I wasn't a mum at that time, but, you know, a cafe worker or a manager or whatever it was that I was doing, and labeling myself as, really coming back to that truth within of like, oh, who am I? Like, what are the key characteristics that make me who I am? What do I stand for? What do I value? Like, what is actually really important to me? Because I was going out into these, I was like, I want a man. But I was going out into these situations and dating, having no idea who I was, so no idea what I was actually asking for. And I kept meeting guys, and I'd be like, I knew they weren't the guy for me, but I would, you know, be like, oh, well, maybe I'll just try them on for size and see what happens. And of course, they never lasted. And that was really big, because I noticed when I actually swapped from that space and went into going, okay, well, having that knowledge of who I am and what I be and who I be, and then being really crystal clear on who I wanted to actually be connected with and who I wanted to like do life with a bit. From that space, I was so much clearer on when I was going into my dates and everything, where I just had my boundaries in place, and I was like, no, like if you don't actually align with my values anymore, like when I meet you, then it's not going to happen. And actually having that confidence to walk away, because I'd created that space within of being totally okay with being alone. It wasn't like I had to latch on to the first guy that paid attention to me. And that was another thing. I was always being chosen. I was never doing the choosing. So I finally got to that space where I was like, well, no, I'm not going to choose you. And no, I'm not going to choose you. And it was funny because I only actually went on, I think, 3 dates before I met Gary, my partner. But yeah, it was just that a beautiful space to be, and to be able to go like, okay, well, what do I want? And who am I going to choose to be in my space? So that one was definitely a big one. And then I really dove into, you know, around vulnerability and how I'd been showing up in my relationships, and asking myself the questions of, you know, why was I showing up that way? And I knew a lot of it. But I also had this idea that vulnerability meant emotional, like reactionary, of, oh, well, something happens and I get triggered and I fly off the handle. That to me was vulnerability. So when I really stripped that back and was like, well, no, that's just reaction to like emotion and beliefs, etc., and fully stepped into vulnerability, it was just like, okay, vulnerability is about feeling what you're feeling and expressing it in a really powerful way and taking full ownership. So that was a really powerful shift as well, because from that space I could relate. And that's something that I've really committed to working on continually with my relationship now, is coming from that space of ownership, as opposed to pointing the finger and being the victim and blaming and then flying off. Yeah, but I think, what else was I kind of checking in with? It was really just the main things were really, you know, how do I want to show up? How do I want to be in my relationships? Who do I want to be in my relationships? You know, who am I when I'm just being? What are my values? What am I willing to put up with and not put up with? And then checking in with my beliefs as well, and stripping those back and going, okay, so they've got this belief that I have to look a certain way to be loved. Like, is that true for me? Is that actually my belief, or is that a belief that I've picked up from someone else or somewhere else, society, mum, you know, friends, whatever? So really going through all my beliefs that I was carrying around myself and love and relationships, and stripping them back and actually deciding and choosing which ones were mine and which ones I let go. And then rewiring my brain constantly, you know, doing the work to really create those new neurological pathways to be able to have that new habitual thought as my belief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was good.
Beautiful. And
yeah,
can you share a little bit about more of those practices that you started to be able to, you know, switch some beliefs and rewiring your brain to something more healthy within yourself?
Yeah, cool. So it was very much because for those of you who are watching who don't understand what a belief is, essentially. So a belief is a thought that is repeated constantly. It becomes a habit, which creates the feeling in your body, which then you put out into the world to attract back in. So that's essentially what a belief is. So my focus was to change those thoughts that were constantly running through my mind, those habitual thoughts, to new ones that served me. So I did this by way of I did like meditations before I went to sleep, which is the perfect time for your brainwaves, because your brainwaves, I think you'll slow right down your brainwaves. I can never remember if they go into beta or theta, but one of the
Alpha.
two, which is our programming. Yeah. Alpha. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. I'm going to remember that now. So you go into that programming state in your mind, so it's like the perfect time. So it was affirmations. It was doing a practice where I had a rubber band around my wrist, and anytime an old belief came in, I pinged it, and I had this thing where I'd say cancel, cancel, and then repeat the new belief to reaffirm it and to remove, like to let go of that old belief. So it was really took a lot of commitment. I had affirmations all around my house. I had them popping up on my phone. I was writing out my new beliefs every single day and just really committed to doing that work to change those thought patterns. And now my beliefs are my new habitual thought patterns that I started, rewiring with 3 or 4 years ago. And it can change really quickly if you are committed and you're consistent and you keep doing it.
Awesome.
I also did a lot of energy healing stuff as well. So going and seeing healers and Reiki, and definitely helps to shift.
Beautiful. And what are some of the things that you've noticed with working with women? Like what are the standout things you've noticed with working with women in relationships?
In regards to why they're not getting what they want, or just
just in general and that as well.
the biggest thing is that universal belief of I'm not good enough, and a lot of women settle for way less than they actually deserve, and put up with a lot that they really don't have to. And that definitely comes from that. Like, I swear 9 times out of 10 I'll ask one of my clients, what are your values? And it's the same thing. Oh, I don't know. Like, I've never thought about that. Okay, so who are you when you're just being? And they'll rattle off their labels. I'm like, no. Who are you when you're just being? And a lot of them also haven't gotten really crystal clear on the kind of man that they want to be with, and have had the confidence and the belief to be able to ask for that and not to settle. There's a lot of settling going on out there. And a lot of, just women not being willing to truly step in and own their worth to be able to attract them from that space. There's a lot of scarcity, a lot of desperation, a lot of neediness, because there's that fear, and it's all fear-based, It's like that fear of, oh my God, I'm going to be alone forever. I'm never going to find anyone, especially if they're one of the last kind of single girls in their group and all their partners are married, coupled up, and you're like, oh my God, and I was that girl, I just remember being in that space so clearly and just being like, why not me? Like, what's wrong with me? Where's my man? And it's a really common thing. So they're probably the main things that come up. It's funny though, because I really attract women who mirror back to me how I used to be, which I think is beautiful because, obviously I can really help them. They know exactly what's going on for them.
And I think another question that's just come up is like, so you're in a relationship with a man, right? And the man may still be carrying some really old, really outdated beliefs from trauma that they've had in the past, and they're still kind of playing that out in the relationship. What are some ways that, because I know it can be hard to for someone who's in the unconscious kind of stages, to hear what they're doing wrong, or to be told what they're doing wrong, kind of thing. Like what are some of the ways that you've been able to hold space for the men, or you teach your women in those relationships to kind of work through that and allow the space for the men to realize some of the different things that that need to change? I think that's about it.
So a couple of things came up through that. I'm going to try and remember them all. So for me, it's definitely been around stepping into the space, like stepping into me, like showing up as the best version of myself, and the way that, okay, hang on. So it's taking responsibility and being the example. So showing them, so not telling them, because that when you said, what they're doing wrong, they're not doing anything wrong. And this is a massive thing, is that, my partner is not, I wouldn't class him as conscious, although he's pretty good at some things, but he's kind of got that whole, oh, it's la la, woo woo, and that kind of mentality around it still, which is perfect. And I found that triggering as fuck when we first got together, and especially when I was going really deep into the work. And I remembered having this conversation or watching a video that Preston Smiles did, and it was about how just because they're not where you are doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them or what they're experiencing isn't right for them. So just because I believe that this way of living and this way of being makes you happy and is the best way of being doesn't mean that that has to be true for him. And it's about staying in your own lane. Like, he and I are doing life together, but we're on our own roads, you know, we're in our own lanes and we're doing this. We're not this. And there's times when we come together, obviously, but in general, we're doing this. So if he's happy and, you know, it was something like if he's playing video games and that makes him happy, how does that make him any less conscious than me? Or, you know, because he's doing the things that make him happy, that bring him joy. And just because it's not what I necessarily would do doesn't mean that it's wrong. So that's a big thing. And I know that, you know, I had an experience with Gary, actually it was a fair while ago now, where there was a lot of resentment coming up. And I was getting really fucking frustrated at him because we'd had a new baby and I was like getting my business off the ground. I was trying to keep the house sorted, looking after the kids, like just burning myself out with this to-do list. Like I put all this pressure on myself that I had to do all of this stuff. And he would go to work, come home and he'd lie on the couch and watch TV, or on his days off he'd chill on the couch and watch TV. And I found myself starting to get really resentful towards him and getting really fucking frustrated. And I went off at him, and when I came out of that and really looked at what was going on, it was that I wasn't so much resenting him. I was more upset at myself because I wasn't actually scheduling in downtime for myself. I was putting so much pressure on myself that I was jealous of him lying on the couch because I wasn't creating that for myself. I wasn't allowing that for myself. And I was making it his problem and being the victim and expecting him to step up and create that space for me to chill out, rather than take responsibility and create the space for myself to chill out. And when I got that awareness, I was like, fuck, okay, cool. And dropped in and was like, fuck the washing, screw my business, I'm just taking the day off. And I laid down and that resentment just dissipated. It was gone because it wasn't him, it was me. And this is a massive thing. And so many people, like I said, do the pointing the fingers and the blame game rather than actually looking at themselves and going, well, hang on a minute. Why is this triggering me? And how am I not showing up for myself in this space? So back to your question, I'd kind of tangent there. I'd like to just go off. But in regards to Gary, it's very much about accepting him for where he's at. And I can choose, like it's always a choice. If I choose to remain in the relationship with where he is at, then I get to fully step into unconditional love and accept him for where he is at. Or I get to choose to walk away from it. And that's my prerogative, and that's my, you know, that's coming from a really empowered space. And, you know, he may decide to start meditating one day. I always bring it up. I'm like, baby, you're meditating with me today? And he's like, no. He's like, if you want to meditate, just go and have a nap. I'm like, baby, it's not the same thing. But he's fucking amazing. And then he just completely blows my mind sometimes, where I'll bring something up and he'll be like, boom, boom, boom. And I'll be like, what? Where did that come from? You know? So I think we can often put these ideas of how our men should be showing up and how they should be reacting, what they should be doing. And we have these blinkers on because they're not showing up like this, 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 and this. And we actually miss out on where they are showing up for us in the ways that we really want them to.
Awesome.
And I think, yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
That's all right. But that's the thing, like it creates that space for love to grow. That's a loving relationship. The other is a codependent, needy relationship that's not fair for either person. Like, you guys come together to actually live a life together, but it does not mean that that person has to actually conform to what it is that you believe to be right or wrong. you know.
Mm-hmm.
He gets to still be, or he or she gets to still be their own individual person, and you get to choose whether or not. And if you're going like this and then all of a sudden you're veering this way and they're still doing this, it's okay to remove yourself from that relationship with love. It doesn't have to be, you know, a nasty breakup or anything, but if it's no longer serving you, have the conversation with them. But if you still truly deeply love them and want to stick with them, then step into acceptance. Allow that person to have their own human experience. Just let go and trust that, you know, they support you on the way. I had this recently, actually, because with my love, I can't have the kind of deep spiritual conversations with him that I would love to have. And it was like, well, why am I actually expecting him to be the one person in my life who supplies everything for me or fills every kind of need for me? And I was like, fuck, what am I doing? And that's such an unfair pressure to put on someone too, because not one person can do that for you. So that's where I started branching out a bit, and I attracted in like you, I attracted in Matt, I attracted in this guy called Reese, like all these amazing men that I can have these incredible conversations with without it meaning anything about my relationship with Gary, because Gary fulfills so much other stuff. Like he's my calm, he's my centered, he's my like grounding. Whereas if I was with like a highly spiritual guy, we'd both just be like, whoo, 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 like away with the fairies. And and I just love that he grounds me so much. So it's really acknowledging the amazing things, the amazing gifts that he has to give our relationship and for me. And then allowing myself the space to go out and connect with other men without it meaning anything about my relationship, but just being able to have those beautiful, deep conversations. And fuck, I just feel so full. Like it just feels so beautiful to be in that space now where I don't feel like I'm lacking anything. And it creates that freedom in our relationship, that spaciousness in our relationship too, to just be.
Beautiful. And I was wondering if you would like to share something more about, you said not one person can be everything for us. And I feel that's very much the belief, within, monogamous relationships and marriage and that kind of thing where, oh, I need this from someone else. Does that mean you don't love me? Blah, 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 all that kind of shit. Can you share some more into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's massive. I know that a lot of, like, when we get into those one-on-one relationships, like man-woman relationship, monogamous relationship, a lot of people do have that belief of, oh, well, if he's not, okay, so 90% could be amazing and there might be one thing that's not quite right. And they're like, oh, fuck, it's not perfect. Oh, my God, like, why am I with this guy? Maybe it's not meant to be. Like, he's not filling up every fucking need of mine. Like, how is this happening? Oh, my God. And it's so crazy because just because we get into these relationships, it's like these blinkers come in and it's like there's no one else. And I know for women especially, it's like it's shut down. It's like there's no one else. Like we stop even looking at men completely. Men, on the other hand, don't. I think you guys just keep it open and are still like looking around, and that's where a lot of that jealousy comes in. It's like, well, I'm not looking, so why are you still looking, etc. But that's a whole other story. But what happens is that we tend to shut down and be like, well, we either don't want to hurt the other person, we don't want to make them jealous, or we don't want to feel jealous or insecure or whatever it is in the relationship. So we actually close ourselves off from actually experiencing and having relationships with anyone else of the opposite sex. Because there is that, that whole, oh, what if I fall in love with someone? And I've had to go through that. Like I went through that massively. Like when I met Matt, it was just like, holy shit. Like we had such an intense, beautiful connection straight away. And I was like, whoa, who is this guy? And it's amazing. And having to move through that in a way of, well, I can love him 100%. Like I love him so much. And it means nothing about my relationship with Gary, like the love that I have with Gary. It's completely different. And to actually allow myself to be in that space without feeling like I was cheating or doing something wrong or being like naughty or just, whatever it was, to actually honor the fact that I am love. Like that's my essence. That's my truth. I am here to love and be love and receive and give, and my true nature is to pour love onto people. And I had been holding myself back from really connecting with other men because I was in a relationship. So when I opened that part of myself, it was like this influx of, that's huge. Like, that's a massive feeling to have for someone else who's not my partner. And at the end of the day, knowing also that it was actually completely separate from my relationship. So nothing to do with wanting to jump into bed with him, or like, I just wanted to be talking to him and communicating with him and having that beautiful connection. And I was still madly, madly in love with my partner. And I'm like, what the fuck is going here? I got so confused. I was like talking to my girlfriend, like, I don't know what's happening here. Like, why is this happening? It was amazing. And it was simply, and Matt also showed me, well, that friendship has shown me where I haven't been showing up fully in my relationship either, and allowed me, so this is the beautiful thing about other people, so it's allowed me to really step in more into my relationship with Gary, and our relationship has just gotten stronger and flourished even more because I'm finally showing up more in my truth. So it's like these beautiful experiences, and it could have gone like with my past conditioning or past programming, it probably would have gone like, oh my God, I love him. Oh my God, I'm going to sleep with him. And oh my God, I'm going to fuck my relationship up. But having now developed that new awareness of that ability to actually just love, just really freely love people without it meaning anything about anyone else, it's just like, you know what, that's freedom. And it doesn't mean anything. Like, I don't know. We did a live on it together, Matt and I. It was interesting about the whole, like having friends of that kind of intensity connection. And it was interesting to hear what people were saying, because a lot of people were like, oh, you're cheating. They thought we were talking about having sex and stuff, and we weren't at all. But I know for a lot of people that kind of, and I think I also know too that for a man, an emotional connection, so for me to have an emotional connection with another man isn't actually something that guys would tend to worry about so much. It's more the physical. And I asked Gary, I was like, if I had an emotional connection with another guy, would you consider that cheating? He's like, no fucking way. And I'm like, okay, so if I had sex with another guy, would you consider that's cheating? He's like, fuck yeah. Like, so that's really where they draw the line. Whereas for me, I was like, whoa, if you go off and have an amazing emotional connection with another woman, I'm going to be like, what's going on here? Like, that to me is more threatening than if he went out and had sex with someone. So if he had sex with someone, I could possibly move through that. Emotional connection, I'd probably go my own way and just allow him that space to be. So that's a really interesting, like, contrast as well, and something that's recently come to my awareness of the difference between men and women.
Beautiful. And so the question that's come up for myself just recently, as I've been kind of exploring open relating and stuff, and just loving, you know, and being love. And I'm noticing, like, in past relationships, or even like, in past relationships, where it kind of gets to that point where it's like, I'll tell them that I love them, right? And it's at that point in that relationship where it's like, oh, okay, I love you too. But then in relationships that I'm having now, like, for example, with my beautiful and lover, Emma, it's just like the first day, it's like, I love you. And it's like, I love you too. But, you know, but I know in other relationships where it's like,
oh, you have to wait 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
And they totally, and they make it mean so much. Like, it's, what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to be together forever? Or like, what are some of the things that you feel can come up when people kind of block that? Like, because it's just love. It doesn't have to mean nothing. Like, it's just, I love you, you know? You know what I'm getting at?
And that's more conditioning. It's more the weight that is put on the word love. Oh, love means we're going to be together forever and I can never get away from you. Or, oh, fuck, they love me, I'm going to break their heart. Or, you know, when you kind of, and that's conditional. That's incredibly conditional with your love. Like, oh, I'm only going to give it to certain people. And also insecurity and fear-based. It's like, I can only give it to certain people, or only receive it from certain people. Otherwise, fuck her, you know, she's going to be crazy or whatever it is. Whereas I know for myself, stepping into, like I told Matt the first time we ever chatted that I loved him. I was like, oh my God, I'm so in love with you. You're amazing. And that is just like, it's just love. I don't even know like how to, it's something that you can't really explain. It's just unconditional. There's no strings attached. There's no intention behind it other than to just be love and express and feel. Like there's no rules with it. There's no weight to it. It's just this beautiful space of, yeah, I love you, and I'm going to tell you that I love you and give that freely. And I think that's probably more so, it comes back to self, as with fucking everything, is that if you can just actually step into that space and offer your love so freely that it doesn't matter, like it's not about having to receive it back, it's just being able to actually express it and give it freely without any expectation. That's key. That's really key, without the expectation. So many people say it only when they think that they're going to hear it back, and only say it because they need to hear it back. It's like, well, you step into that space within yourself where you truly love yourself, and then you can give freely to others, and you don't have a need to feel love from others because you've got your own back. You know, you're so filled your own cup up so much that you can just give it freely to others without that expectation of receiving it back. And if someone isn't able or in a space to receive it, then that's okay. It's nothing about you. That's their journey. But you can still offer it. You can still give it freely and not. And I think a lot of people give it and then it's not received and it's not given back, and then they shut down and they're like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Like, why didn't they love me? Like, what's wrong with me? When it's not that at all. It's just that weight and that trying to think of the word. It's like the expectation that is attached to that word. Whereas if we come back to our truth and that understanding that love is all that we are, like we are here to love and spread love, and we are just beings of love and light. Like that's our natural state. And you just want to like fucking wrap everyone up in a big hug and just pour love into them. It's so beautiful. And you sound a little bit crazy, but that's okay.
No, but that's cool. I like being a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Did that answer your question, my love?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I guess like you did answer that in the way that, you know, when people aren't able to receive that and make it mean something, you know, that's the part of them that isn't fully, I guess, loving yourself. Is that what you would put it down to?
Definitely. Yeah, there's like this, I would just look at what you attach to the word love. Like, what are the expectations you attach to the word love? So if someone offers you that freely and you aren't able to actually receive it, what is it within you? What is it that you believe that word to mean that's preventing you from accepting unconditional love from another being? Like if someone says, I love you, and I've only just met them, I'm like, thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. And that's all you have to say. That's amazing. It doesn't have to freak you out. Like, but yeah, look at that and just ask yourself, okay, if someone said that to me, what does that mean to me? Like, what am I attaching to that? What expectation?
Beautiful. Love begins within. Love it, Solomon. Thank you, brother.
Yes, it does.
Has anyone got any questions for Nicola? I think there's
I can't see comments, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Matthew says, I love the balanced aspect of both masculine and feminine energies. Thank you, Matthew.
That was something else I did want to touch on. The masculine and the feminine, and how, so in regards to that, I hear a lot from women that they get with these guys who are like all in their masculine at first, and then they drop and they stop doing things, and these women step into the space of the nagging and the pinpointing and kind of taking over and just doing and doing and doing. And what often is happening here is that we women are very like organized, we're very like time oriented, we're like incredibly structured. And what happens is that when we put that pressure on and we're like, oh fuck, okay, so I've got to do this, because we have so much, we like to fill our plates like this big, and we have so much going on that we will ask our men to do something and step up for us. And if they don't do it in time, then we'll overtake and we'll do it. And we'll just be like, oh fuck it, he's not going to get it done, and get it done. And then we'll build resentment, etc. And what tends to happen is that the woman then ends up being so deeply in her masculine energy of the do, the hustle, 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 that she's actually, is it emasculating? I can't remember if it's demasculating or emasculating. I think it's emasculating her man.
Yep.
Yeah, to drop more into his feminine. It's like, oh, well, if she's doing it, then I'm not going to. And she's taking over. So she's like rising into her feminine. He's like coming down. And then she's like, well, you're not being a man, rah, rah, rah. But what's actually happening is that she's so deeply in her masculine that she's not creating the space for him to actually rise up into that space, into his natural state of being. Because we're so fucking impatient sometimes, and we're so like boom, 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 organized. So beautiful. Like if you're in a relationship, or if this has come up for you where you feel like, because I hear it, like women will be talking to me, I'm like, you're so heavily in your masculine, babe. Of course he's not showing up for you, because he doesn't fucking know how. He doesn't know how to respond to you when you're in this state. He's like going, well, she's in the masculine, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to go down here and stop. So if you find yourself in that space, really check in and be like, okay, how am I showing up here? And then notice yourself, like just play with it a little bit and be like, okay, so I'm going to ask him to do something, because men love to help us. They want, like, essentially at the end of the day, guys just want us to be happy, right? So if we ask them to do something for us and then create the space without the expectation or the time limit, or even if there is a time limit, being crystal clear on what it is that you're asking, and create that space for them to actually step up, he will then have that space to step back into his masculine energy and allow you to drop down into your feminine more. And this is a massive, like a constant battle between the sexes, because women have had it so ingrained in us that to get by in this world, it's a man's world, and you have to be doing this, and you have to be stepping up and showing up in this way, and hustle, 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 and grind, 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 that we have just become so heavily masculine that our poor guys, these poor amazing men, are just going, what the fuck is happening here? I don't know how to do this anymore. So when in doing that and allowing him to actually step up more, it actually creates a space for us too to drop back down into our feminine, which is that beautiful yin yang, that beautiful flow between the two energies, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, which is how nature intended it to be. And then you get to have this incredible relationship with a man who's really showing up, and you're just fucking like, whoa, babe, like this is sexy. I just watched my man build a cubby house for the boys on the weekend. I'm just in there going, this is hot. You know, like these things that they do where he's like fully being able, and I was the same. Like I was so heavily in my masculine of do and overpowering, and that he was just like, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know what to do here. And when I started shifting that and just like allowing him the space to step into his masculine, it allowed me to drop back down into my feminine and be in my flow and, like, you know, dance in that energy. And then to see him rise as my king as well is just like, yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I think a lot of women don't realize how much they're actually impacting the man's ability to show up in a masculine way in the relationship just by being so heavily in their masculine.
Beautiful. Chris has got a question here, and he says, how would one approach a partner that isn't aware of this situation, male to female perspective?
So a girl, you're wanting to approach a woman? How would you... How would someone approach a partner who's not aware of the male, female? Is she heavily, does he mean like she's heavily in her masculine?
From the male's point. So I guess he's saying who's not aware of the masculine, feminine kind of drop in, drop out kind of thing that you were explaining before, and how that works.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. I would be encouraging her to step into her feminine more. So creating a space. So even just asking her, you know, what does it mean to you to be feminine? What does that mean to you as an individual? Because it's different for everyone. So for me, when I started reconnecting myself, it was about slowing down. It was about, you know, taking note of my cycle and flowing with that and the cycles of the universe and the moon and my inner cycles. And it was also about creating more movement. So just like flowy movement, because I was always like a doof girl. I was just like boof, 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 boof. And so like, yeah, like my exercise has always been training for like Ironmans and marathons. And it was I was very much like this, which is very linear, which is very a masculine trait. So I decided that I was like, right, I wanted to start reconnecting with my sensual being, really dropping into what that feels like, because I was so disconnected from it. And I just simply started by putting on beautiful, like soft music and flowing with my body. And so that for me was about reconnecting with my feminine. Stepping into vulnerability really powerfully was huge as well, because I'd always like, oh no, walls, I can't show vulnerability, I can't show emotion unless I was flying off the fucking handle, because to me that meant that I was soft and weak and couldn't handle myself. So that was a massive thing of dropping into that energy as well, which to me is a feminine energy of being able to soften and express myself without going, you know, getting on at someone. So that for me was femininity. But just, see, and it's hard because I don't know where she's at, but I would be opening up that conversation and just, you'll gauge on how she actually is. Get her to watch this. Get her to watch something else that I've put out around like femininity or whatever it is. And just open up the conversation, unless she's like completely shutting you down or whatever it is. Just leave like books lying around or something. But yeah, I would be definitely asking that question of, okay, what does it mean to you to be feminine, and what does it mean for me to be masculine to you? Having that open conversation together, and then allowing it to roll on from that space. If she's an open communicator, then you'll be able to have that flow. And if she doesn't grasp it straight away, be patient with her. Like if you love her and it's something new, just keep leaving little hints and encourage her to step into that feminine, and then ask yourself as well, so what does it mean for me to be a masculine man in my relationship? What does masculinity mean for me, and how am I actually showing up right now? And if you're not showing up in the way that you want to, fucking step up. Like raise your bar, man. Raise your standards and step up to that space that you believe masculinity is, or whatever it means to you, and start showing up for her in that way, which is going to allow her the space to drop into her feminine. I hope that answered his question. If not, Chris, just shoot me a message and we can go into it a bit deeper.
I think that was it, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. And the one question that I've been loving asking everyone on all these interviews was, what is a message that is deep within your heart along your journey that you feel needs to be shared?
That we're only here for a really fucking short time. And this human experience, it comes with so many challenges and so many, like, it makes me emotional thinking about it, ups and downs, and it can be really fucking hard, you know, and we create so much more suffering for ourselves. And when we really connect and can drop into that love, that fucking love that is in all of us, build that relationship with ourselves to then be able to pour more love out into this world. It gives me goosebumps to think about what kind of world we could live in if everyone was so heart connected and coming from that space of love and offering love so freely and unconditionally. So it's definitely just really come back to that within. Like, remember that you are good enough. You are worthy. You are so fucking powerful. You are love. And you have the ability to impact so many people's lives on a daily basis just from choosing to come from that space. So just choose love. In everything, ask yourself that question, what would love do? And live from that space, because that is going to change the fucking world. That's what this world needs, is more love. That makes me cry. And this planet needs this right now, you know, like it's so important. So just fucking choose love. It's a choice. It really is.
Beautiful. And there was actually something that came up the other night on an interview where there was this conversation between putting love into yourself and growing yourself, but then also, you know, coming from that space to then give back to the world. But then there was also the other argument where I was like, oh, you should be focusing on out here. You can't focus on yourself first. You know what I mean? There's all this stuff going on out of here. And what would you say to that?
If you don't have the love in here, you can't give the love out here. You can give it to a certain extent, but there's still limitation, there's still expectation, there's still weight on it. You've got to create that within you first. And by creating that within you first, you just naturally become a beacon of it. Like if you are fucking just hating yourself and then still trying to desperately pour your love out into other people, that's not coming from a space of abundance. That's a space of scarcity and a space of lack. But when you can really fill your cup up to be able to give from that space, to be able to love so freely and unconditionally, that you are so full up that it just pours out of you. It pours out of you in the way you speak to yourself, the words you use, the actions that you take. Like it's this flow-on effect. It's a ripple effect. And if you're not doing that within first, then it's definitely not going to have the same kind of impact as it does, as it can. Yes, you can make people feel loved, but if you're depleting yourself in any kind of way, you're not feeling it within first, then it's wasted. And nowhere near as powerful and impactful as it could be when it's got that really abundant, like full energy behind it. So yeah, I definitely believe it starts within, to be able to give really powerfully to others without like losing yourself and depleting yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, cool. So if anyone else has any other questions for Nicola, please drop them below. And while we're waiting for that, I would love you to share like what you've got going on now, like what you're creating, who you're helping, what's the vision, and you know what really inspires you now.
The vision is to impact 20 million beings in this lifetime, to raise the love vibration of the planet, so really connect them back to love, and to be able to raise the love vibration of the planet for Mama Earth as well as mankind moving forward. It's really important. Yeah, so that's the dream. That's what keeps me getting out of bed every day. So right now I'm creating events here in Brisbane called Single Sisters, about bringing women together who are like the last kind of single girls in their group, running my first one on the Gold Coast in March as well. And then I'm also got a retreat, which is happening in February, Valentine's Day. So you don't have to spend Valentine's Day alone for 2 nights, so 3 days, 2 nights down there to really heal and release the old relationship stuff, to rebuild, and then to be able to manifest from that space. So yeah, that's probably my main things at the moment, really focusing on building community and attracting in soul connections, and raising that vibration for sure.
Beautiful.
What inspires me? Human beings inspire me. The capacity that human beings have to love, like even in their, you know, when you really look at stuff, the way that we function, it's all from love, and the capacity that we have to be able to just, you know, in moments of like sheer terror, like I always love the thing when they say, there was a thing, what was I fucking heard about when the September 11 happened, and everyone was making their calls. There was no calls of hate being made. There was all just people calling their friends and family to say, I love you. And that's like powerful. That's the stuff that just inspires me, that capacity that human beings have to love. And when everything is just fucking stripped away and it's like you're faced with your mortality, all that you are thinking about is love. So bringing that into your everyday, can you imagine how much that can impact your life and change your life? Like, it's powerful. It's really powerful. That inspires me.
Amazing. Thank you. I love you
And just a big
so
love
much.
bug. I love you. Thank you. I received that.
So good. Cool. Well, can you share also how people can get in touch with you? If there's a website or anything, and
so
your
website's
app.
launching on the 1st of February, which is exciting. But I also have, obviously you can find me on the book, and I also have a tribe called Love Unleashed, which is, for any woman who are wanting to really dive deeper into feeling more love and raising their love vibration as well, to be able to attract in amazing love from another. Yeah. But if you want to reach out and have a chat, then PM me, and we can jam. Always up for that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think we'll finish up there. So thank you so much for joining.
Yeah. Oh, it's been an hour. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so thanks for being so cool about the time thing. Fucking phone thing. Hilarious.
Whatever.
We got there in the end. It's all perfect. It's all perfect.
Yeah, always.
One of my favorite
Is.
sayings is by Buddha, and it's like, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. And I'm just like, yeah, it's awesome. Yes. Sending you so much love, beautiful man.
Thank you.
Bye,
Received.
everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everyone. Love you all.